A few years back, we started our show to help others interested in exploring the Pacific Northwest and eventually the rest of the world.
Inspired by the spirit of the Negro Motorist Green Book, we wanted to be a valuable resource to Black and BIPOC travelers while connecting them to some of the most amazing places.
What's unique about our show is not only do we showcase spectacular destinations, but we also rate our experiences for how comfortable we felt visiting as Black travelers.
In every episode right here, we will show you some of those destinations as well as their comfort rating. I'm Anthony Love.
And I'm Marlie Love. Come along with us on
Traveling While Black.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Marlie and Anthony Love, and welcome to a new episode of Traveling While Black with Anthony and Marlie.
Yes, once again, our show Traveling While Black is where we drop into places and rate our experiences on 3 criteria. The most important being how we felt visiting as a Black traveler.
Yes, like a modern-day green book. And we produce over 150 episodes on our YouTube channel, and we're excited to bring our mission of being a valuable travel resource right here to you.
One fact that stands out about the Pacific Northwest is the diversity of its landscapes. The region has everything from volcanic mountains to high deserts and even a rainforest.
And what I love the most about the Pacific Northwest is the access to some of the most unique islands in the world. And that's why on this episode, we will be introducing you to 3 of our favorites.
Yes, we know that you all are going to love these islands, but also later in the show, we're going to show you some travel tips as well as show some of the travels that you sent in, a part of our Where Are You Traveling While Black segment.
And most importantly, we'll be showing you our most recent comfort ratings for the 3 islands featured within this episode. So let's get into it.
As we mentioned, one of the best things about living in the Pacific Northwest is having access to some amazing islands.
For this episode of Traveling While Black, we'll be showing you the magic of 3 of those islands: San Juan Island, Orcas Island, and Vancouver Island.
But just like most good things, to experience those islands, you have to work for it. Because to reach each of these islands, you're required to take a ferry.
And each ferry experience is unique depending on the island you're trying to reach. For example, to get to the San Juan Islands, it's going to take a little bit of extra effort.
Just to drive onto the ferry, you will need to make a reservation on the Washington State Ferry website. And make sure you do it in advance because these reserved slots fill up quick.
Considering the hour-and-a-half drive from Seattle to Anacortes, where the ferry dock is, the journey to the San Juan Islands from Seattle can be anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, depending on the ferry schedule and availability.
And getting to Vancouver Island is totally different. On our visit, we took the FRS Clipper, which is a fast ferry that departs in Seattle and docks in the city of Victoria, British Columbia.
The journey still requires that you reserve your tickets at FRS Clipper's website. And don't forget, since you're going out of the country, you will need to pass through customs, so be sure to bring your passport or a real ID.
We will say riding in the Clipper was a lot more stylish way to go. The ride comes along with comfortable seats, some snacks, and even some adult beverages.
But the ferry rides aren't the only thing that differs between the islands. Each island offers a unique experience.
San Juan Island and Orcas Island are 2 of 172 islands and reefs, a part of the San Juan Archipelago in Washington State. Both of these islands are located in the Salish Sea, north of the Strait of Juan de Fuca.
Vancouver Island is an island off the Pacific coast in Canada. The city that we are featuring, Victoria, is located on the southern tip of the island. Victoria is also the capital of British Columbia, and you'll see later in this episode how the city resembles Britain to this day.
But don't get it twisted, Vancouver Island also contains an abundance of access to some amazing nature. And in this episode, we are excited to show you the beauty and the magic of these 3 islands located in the Pacific Northwest.
We've been living in the Pacific Northwest since 2019, and the beauty never gets old.
Yes, we love it more every day. Now that you have a little background on the islands and what goes into getting to those islands, let's dive into the experience on the islands, starting with Friday Harbor on San Juan.
Friday Harbor on San Juan Island was our first time to the San Juan Archipelago, but as you'll see, it was not our last.
And we can go ahead and tell you now, our last time won't be our last time, huh? Take a look at this experience and hopefully it inspires you to make a trip for yourself.
We heard that the San Juans were magical, and we can honestly say that it definitely lived up to that. For one reason, San Juan Island had a lot to offer.
Like art and culture, which is on full display within Roche Harbor part of the island. Within the sculpture part that features over 150 art pieces and even the old lime kiln that sits in the middle of town square, reflecting an important part of the island's past.
Along with the art and culture, the island offers tons of options for food and drink, especially seafood. What was a bit surprising to us was that we found a really cool place to get some delicious and unique wine, Chin Chin.
Located at 255 Spring Street in Friday Harbor, Chin Chin is how they put it, more than a shop, but rather good life essentials. Though they offer a bunch of unique merchandise, what really attracts most is their curated selection of natural wines and, of course, decadent handcrafted chocolate.
Yes, the chocolate was delicious, and you know that we had to taste their wine selection, some of which comes from all over the world. We definitely recommend Chin Chin Goods on your trip to the island.
Yes, the options of restaurants, shops, including the art and history is all great, but with a lot of the magical attraction to the island being its accessibility to nature and wildlife, we wanted to be sure to experience popular local activities that align with that.
For the first activity, we went to Lime Kiln Park and met up with Catherine with Friends of San Juan to learn more about the local wildlife and its connection to the island by tide pooling at low tide.
Friends of San Juan is a local organization focused on fostering wild and healthy shorelines and ensuring health of the marine ecosystem. During our time, we learned quite a bit and got to experience what we learned up close.
It was really cool getting to see the different wildlife, some of which we don't think of as wildlife. And what else was crazy to think about was that where we were standing would be underwater in a couple short hours.
After our experience with the wildlife around the tide pools, we were ready to experience another more famous wild resident of the surrounding waters, the whales.
So we booked a whale watching tour with Western Prince Whale Watching Adventures. The tour company provides 3-hour tours of the Salish Sea in search of whales and other wildlife to encounter.
Since living here, we have always wanted to see a whale, so we were really excited about this experience. After a brief introduction and getting fitted for our safety gear, we loaded onto the fast raft and headed off looking for whales.
Our captain for this trip was Captain JB, who communicated with other captains via radio for sighting tips. Along the way, naturalist Ayla educated us with facts and stories of the local area and wildlife outside, and including local whale families.
We were lucky on our trip because we actually followed a family of orcas for more than an hour. It was amazing. We got to see them in a variety of phases, from travel phase to even hunting and feeding behavior.
Yes, this was a lot of fun. Once again, we learned a lot and saw other wildlife along the way, but seeing the whales in their natural habitat was absolutely magical.
Yeah, we can honestly say that our whole experience all around felt magical. I mean, even the place we chose to stay was unbelievable, Snug Harbor Resort.
Yes, everything needed to enjoy the magic of the island is provided at Snug Harbor Resort. From the outside necessities like yard games, a fire pit with fire kindling and wood, even rafts and kayaks for guests to rent.
Along with the on-site coffee cafe, the cabins are perfect for visitors who didn't even want to leave the resort, as they include a fridge and stovetop oven. You can't beat it.
Yes, we loved our time on the island, and to tell the truth, we didn't want to leave.
Wow, I really miss Friday Harbor on San Juan Island. It really is magical.
Yeah, me too. And I have to say, whale watching was probably my favorite part of the visit. What was yours, Marlie?
Probably the wine and chocolate at Chin Chin.
Not surprised. But San Juan Island isn't the only magical island we're going to show you. Let us introduce you to the archipelago's other popular island, Orcas.
For this episode, we took another trip to San Juan's archipelagos. This time to check out the second island of what we consider to be the main three, Orcas Island.
Orcas Island, which was originally inhabited by the Strait Salish peoples, surprisingly got its name not from the majestic animals that inhabit its surrounding waters, but rather from the Mexican viceroy who financed the exploration of the area in the late 1700s. Compared to the previous island we visited, San Juan Island, Orcas had some noticeable differences.
Yes, for instance, the terrain. As opposed to San Juan Island, Orcas Island is more mountainous and forested. Also, while San Juan Island is more populated than Orcas Island, Orcas is slightly bigger.
Yes, the islands were definitely different in those aspects. But there would also be another difference on Orcas we were told about that wasn't so visibly seen, at least to us initially.
Prior to our previous trip, we had heard that the islands overall were magical, which turned out to be true based on our experience on the archipelago's namesake island. But prior to this trip, we were told that Orcas Island would be in fact where we would find the most magic.
Hearing this really surprised us, because we didn't think it could get more magical after our experience in Friday Harbor. So having piqued our interest, we wondered what could it be that makes people consider Orcas to be more magical than the others.
So using what we learned from our previous visit to the islands, we booked our ferry tickets and headed off to find out the answer for ourselves.
Once the ferry landed, we were excited to get onto Orcas to find out what was it about the island that makes people claim it to be the most magical of all the San Juan Islands.
But not before checking into the place where we would be laying our heads for the next couple of nights. First, it is important to note that on Orcas, you won't find many traditional hotels.
For reasons you will see within this episode, a lot of visitors come to Orcas are coming to camp at the many campsites on the island.
And for those not wanting to stay in a tent or camp at all, Airbnbs and bed and breakfast type establishments more so fit the vibe of the island.
Yep, even the historic Orcas Hotel, which has been operating since 1904, feels more like a bed and breakfast. But more on that later.
For us, we chose to stay at Otter's Pond Bed and Breakfast, an adult retreat that offers 5 luxurious suites that are available year-round.
Not only are the suites themselves very comfortable, the property also offers relaxing lounge areas both inside and outside, with beautiful views of Otter's Pond as well as the local wildlife. Oh yeah, they even offer an outdoor hot tub, so to really chill out while enjoying the views.
Yes, as soon as we checked in, we knew that we made the right choice for our stay on the island. On top of the amazing accommodations, we were also able to get a breakdown of the island before starting our search to understand Orca's magic.
For simplicity, Orcas Island can be divided up into 2 parts, East Sound and West Sound. The West Sound is where you depart the ferry. You will find a very small village with a few shops and restaurants. The East Sound is where you will find the larger village with more shops and restaurants.
Outside of their different vicinities, both East and West Sound offered quite a bit. For example, both offered excellent options for food and drink. On the East Side, we had dinner at 2 great places, Buck Bay Shellfish Farm and New Leaf Cafe.
On the West Sound, we enjoyed a delicious meal at Orcas Hotel Cafe. What's interesting about this experience is that the historic hotel where the cafe is located is reported to be haunted, and we may have possibly encountered some of the actions of the supernatural resident during our dinner.
Yes, we had some great lunches and dinners on the island. As for breakfast, we had the luxury of being served a different delicious meal every morning, which lends to another great thing about Otter's Pond Bed and Breakfast, and that is owned and operated by James Beard recognized chef Amanda Zilmick.
Other than the great food and drink, both East and West Sound offer amazing outdoor options. Those options, of course, include an abundance of beaches. Although it is on the West Sound within the Deer Harbor area that you will find the only sandy beach on the island.
Along with the beaches, Orcas offers a ton of camping and hiking options, like Turtleback Mountain on the West Sound, and not 1 but 2 state parks on the East Sound, Obstruction Pass State Park and Moran State Park.
On our trip, we decided to check out the much bigger Moran State Park. A big reason why we chose this park over the other was the park's access to the island's highest point, Mount Constitution, which of course we had to check out.
Yes, I really enjoyed this mountain view experience because while there are a multitude of multi-use trails you can take to the top, you can also choose to simply drive to it, which is exactly what we did.
If you do choose to drive up, there's a parking lot along with the visitor center that includes some really clean public bathrooms. But of course, the real payoff is the views, which are enhanced by the stone watchtower, which also offers some interesting exhibits within.
Even though I was loving the shortcut to the payoff, we couldn't visit Moran State Park without experiencing a real hike. So we found out about an often overlooked hike that offers another spectacular payoff. And even better, it was decently easy.
That hike was the Cascade Falls, a moderate trail that takes hikers a quick but peaceful hike through beautiful forest. In less than a half a mile, you come to a spectacular 45-foot waterfall, which can be taken in either at an upper or lower viewpoint.
If you happen to be interested in more of a challenge, the trail also connects to more trails that lead to other waterfalls. But again, this was perfect for me.
It is important to note that the parking around all of the trails within the state parks require a Discover Pass. But there are plenty of pay stations around if you only need a day pass. Also, if you don't have a boat or boat and accessories, there are plenty of places around Orcas that offer rentals. And renting just doesn't stop with boats. Visitors can also rent bikes, mopeds, and even cars.
Cars may be a great rental option if you choose to take the fast ferry from Anacortes. Yes, we had a blast during our outdoor experience on Orcas, just like our previous experience on San Juan Island, and we can honestly say that we really enjoyed our time.
Still, at the end of it all, we had to ponder, what was it that makes Orcas more magical than the other islands?
And in asking, no one could articulate it for us. Not the locals who joined our table for our meal at Buck Bay, not any of the locals at the local farmers market, and not even our host Amanda at Otter's Pond.
But when we thought deeper about our experiences, it finally hit us. Whether we were enjoying a meal at one of the restaurants, driving from place to place on the island, staring at a waterfall in Moran State Park, or even just lounging at Otter's Pond Bed and Breakfast. We were always surrounded by nature, to the point we were engulfed in it. Yes, it was magical.
While we don't know if we can say Orcas offers more or any less magic than San Juan Island, we can say that it is a different type of magic. How we sum it up is that San Juan's Friday Harbor provides the type of options that take you to experience the magic of the archipelago, but Orcas, it provides options for the magic to come to you.
Once again, we definitely recommend a visit to the San Juan Islands, no matter if you choose the namesake island or Orcas Island.
The magic of Orcas Island can only be experienced by visiting the island yourself. So definitely add Orcas to your must-visit list.
So we've introduced you to San Juan Island, Orcas Island, and when we return, you'll be introduced to the next island that's in the Pacific Northwest, but not in the United States.
Plus, later in the episode, we'll give you the comfortability for Black people rating for all 3 of the islands. So don't go nowhere.
Welcome back. If you didn't know, the Pacific Northwest also includes some of Canada, British Columbia to be exact.
That's right. And here in Seattle, we're lucky because you can take a fast ferry just a few hours north to Canada. And we did just that on our visit to British Columbia's capital city, Victoria.
Before it was colonized by Europeans, Vancouver Island was home to a variety of indigenous peoples who thrived for thousands of years thanks to the abundance of natural resources.
Europeans finally arrived in the 1700s, eager to capitalize on those resources, and with that eagerness came conflict.
Ironically, it was a rising conflict that led to the founding of the very city we would visit on the island. See, by the 1800s, beef was brewing between Britain and the United States over competing claims within the Pacific Northwest Territory.
With Vancouver Island being a hotspot for fur, the Hudson Bay Company saw the perfect opportunity to help bolster their country's claim to the territory.
The company would do this by establishing Fort Victoria, a fur trading post that also stood as a symbol to the United States that British presence was there to stay. Yeah, it was a bit petty.
Yes, a little bit, and we imagine it went something like this.
Can you believe those Americans?
Can't believe it.
Screwy Yankees already barging in on the claims.
Don't get me started.
Now they think they could claim Vancouver Island? All that fur for themselves? I mean, it's called Vancouver Island, not Jefferson Island.
I know that's right.
You know what?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to set up a fur trading post right on Vancouver Island.
Do it.
Yeah, big old fort with cannon.
There you go.
And we're not going to stop there.
What else do you want to do?
We're going to have afternoon tea every day.
Tell him.
Hell, we're going to have high tea.
Tell him.
Beans on toast. Everything.
Go get my money.
Fort Victoria eventually grew into a significant settlement that played a vital role in the region's commercial development and succeeded in establishing British control of the island.
That fort would become modern-day Victoria, the city we took a day trip to on Vancouver Island.
Compared to another Canadian city we've been to, Vancouver, Victoria visibly reflects more of its British connection, or its daily observance of afternoon tea. I can definitely go for that.
Now, the island does offer a lot of great options outside of Victoria, but since the Clipper was so convenient for getting to the island from Seattle, we wanted to see what we can do in just a one-day visit. By the time we got through customs, we had 5.5 hours to see what we can do on the island.
Considering the time and where we were at, we decided to observe afternoon tea at the historic Pendery Inn. There we had a lovely afternoon tea that includes snacks, and even got into it.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing, but I got to admit, I kind of enjoyed the tea time.
Yes, afternoon tea was a perfect way to start our day in Victoria on the island. We had plenty of options to choose for the next activity, from the many water taxis providing rides across the harbor to the many restaurants around the area.
But we were wanting to know a little bit about the history of the area. So what better place than the Royal British Columbia Museum, a renowned museum whose royal title was certified by Queen Elizabeth II.
The Royal British Columbia Museum offers some really cool exhibits, like Angkor, the Lost Empire of Cambodia, and Sue the T-Rex Experience.
Yeah, it was pretty dope seeing the actual T-Rex skeleton in real life. Along with those featured exhibits, we also checked out some other amazing ones that gave us more insight to the history of the local natural area and even the city.
This museum was actually one that I enjoyed.
After strolling through the museum for a couple of hours, we stopped into a local restaurant to grab some lunch and watch Canadian football. Well, we didn't go there for the Canadian football. It was just on.
By the time we filled ourselves up, it was time to head back to the ferry dock to prepare to board our ferry return to Seattle. All in all, the day in Victoria was a lot of fun.
Yep, everything from the ride over to the history to the beautiful weather and scenery walking around the city. I even had a great time at tea.
Even the ride back provided a beautiful view of the city. We will definitely need to come back to Victoria and really Vancouver Island in general for a much longer trip.
But this one was fun enough for the time being.
I think we need to incorporate afternoon tea into our daily rituals.
You know what, Marlie? I agree. Also, you probably noticed the little historically almost correct history reenactment. See, occasionally, we like to give our take on history.
Well, we hope you all don't mind. But don't go anywhere, because when we come back, you'll see our comfortability for Black people rating for all of the islands covered in this episode.
It's time for TWB's Travel Flex, where every week we share a travel tip that can help you on your travel adventures. Our travel tip today is, don't put all of your direction eggs in one GPS basket. Have a backup.
I am an expert navigator because I'm usually a passenger princess, but even I know that on a long road trip, there can very well be times when you lose service. So to make sure we never get lost and stay safe, we always make sure to keep a backup. For example, taking screenshots of our GPS directions, or even going old school and keeping a physical map handy.
So if you're planning a road trip, be sure to have a backup. And we are serious. Don't be embarrassed to get yourself an old school map.
In fact, you can head to our Amazon store and grab the map that we use for our road trip, as well as other travel essentials.
And this has been this episode's TWB Travel Flex.
Welcome back. And if you're new here, as a reminder, we rate destinations on how comfortable we feel as Black people visiting that particular destination.
Exactly. And up next, you'll see how we rated the 3 Pacific Northwest islands featured on this episode: San Juan Island, Orcas Island, and Vancouver Island.
As promised, here are our comfortability for Black people ratings for San Juan Island, Orcas Island, and Vancouver Island.
All of the locations covered in this episode were rated with our original 5-point scale, which is not a problem at all.
First, starting with our experience on San Juan's namesake island. From the service at the restaurants to the people we met up with, everyone was friendly and hospitable. We even noticed a few other Black residents on the island, as well as a couple other Black tourists. Plus, at the time of our visit, the mayor of Friday Harbor was Black.
On the San Juan's other island, Orcas, we experienced the exact same friendliness and hospitality of the locals. While the mayor of Orcas is not Black, we did get to experience a lot more nature. This added a ton to our comfort because, as we say, nature loves Black people.
Yes, both islands scored a 5 out of 5 on our comfortability for Black people score. As for Vancouver Island, it was our 4th time in Canada, and every time we've been, it has been our experience that the Canadians live up to their stereotype of being friendly.
Yes, we were comfortable on Vancouver Island as well, continuing with the positive streak of Pacific Northwest Island Black comfort. Vancouver Island also scored a 5 out of 5 on our last visit.
What's interesting about all of these islands is that the Black resident population is around 1%, less than in some cases. Despite that, these islands are a perfect example to why we do our show.
Now, at some point, we'll have to go back to all these islands to rate them against our new comfort scale. But in the meantime, we encourage you to do the same.
Yes, perhaps you can go to Orcas and let us know if you notice a lot of signs or artifacts of inclusion.
Or maybe you can visit Vancouver Island and let us know if there's any Black history to uncover within Victoria, British Columbia.
We would even love if you told us on your trip to San Juan Island if you saw enough fellow Black folk in Friday Harbor to make you feel more welcome.
And already knowing that each has a low Black population, would that impact your personal feelings of comfort during your visit? Yes, with these criteria that make up our comfort scale, you can rate these destinations and any others you think worth sharing with the community.
If you ever need a reminder of these criteria, just go to our YouTube channel where you can see a breakdown of our new comfortability scale. Yep, check that out. But until then, safe travels, beautiful people.
Wow, what a fun episode showing you some Pacific Northwest islands that you should really consider checking out.
Yep, but before we go, we want to see some of where you are traveling while Black.
Our first pick comes from Angela and Victor in front of Pina Palace in Sintra, Portugal. Fun fact, this is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Next up is a picture from Denise and Derek celebrating on the waters of Cabo, Mexico. I think it's time for us to plan our return trip to Cabo.
Finally, here's one from Jerry. kicking it on the beaches of the Catalina Islands. Love the shirt, brother.
Yes, we absolutely love seeing our people enjoying travel. Be sure to send us yours. Here's how.
Yes, it's super easy. Just go to our website, travelingwhileblackseattle.com, and submit pictures of yourself traveling while black. Be sure to include your name and where you're traveling to. And in every episode, we will pick a handful of submissions to shout out during our segment, Where Are You Traveling While Black?
Well, that's it for this episode. We hope you all enjoy seeing and learning about some of these really cool Pacific Northwest islands.
Yes, because we really enjoyed showing them to you. And we can't wait until next episode to show you more of what we have in store.
And always remember, you can dive deeper into our adventures by joining our YouTube channel at Traveling While Black. And also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at TravelWhileBLK and TikTok at TravelingWhileBLK. So until next time, beautiful people, stay up, stay true, and do you.